presentation, it'd be, how do I even more strongly inspire my downline? I want to do something new and different. How do I light some fire under them a little bit more in a different way? Others are perhaps saying, how do I motivate myself? There can be a little fear amongst some of you. How do I keep up this level of success? What happens if keeping up with the Joneses is a real psychological phenomenon that you feel maybe I need something new to keep up? Some of you might simply be wondering, well, I'm just starting out, how do I get more level ones? Right? How do I go beyond my friends, my family, my close-knit community? How do I get those stronger level ones? How do I really get those right people? How do I get to the good network marketers and get them here? And others might even be worried a little bit, what do I do with this kind of success I've had? How do I manage the relationships with my communities and with my neighbors? You can be almost embarrassed of your success in some ways. And so you might self-sabotage just slightly because you live in a town in which you don't want to overly talk about that. So a high-impact leader can address any of those pain points or those things that might run through your mind. So what does that high-impact leader look like? Well, overall, there's 3 types of leaders. We have a lot of great leaders in this room. Some of you will be self-proclaimed leaders, but you'll define it different ways. Others are not sure if you're a leader, you're trying, you think you are, you're trying to get there. And others might even admit, oh, I know I'm not a leader. It just depends how you're defining it. What I love about this concept of high-impact leadership is there's not one of you in this room that cannot become a high-impact leader. It has nothing to do with personality. It has nothing to do with inherent traits. To me, leadership, there is no mystique about it. It is a collection of behaviors, of disciplined behaviors that you do on a regular basis that makes you a leader. So anybody in here, there's not one behavior I'm going to give you today that you couldn't say, I could do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take away, I'm going to give you about 10. You'll probably take away 2, 3, maybe you'll take away all 10, but at most 2 or 3 will resonate with you and you'll say, I can do that. I can start doing that tomorrow. Yeah, I'm a little bit shy and that doesn't seem like me. That doesn't matter, that behavior's no problem for me. So it's a collection of behaviors. If you discipline yourself to consistently engage in certain behaviors, people do see you as a leader. So 3 types of leaders out there. So I know we have a lot in this room. The one type is our results-driven leader. So those of you that have already reached a level of financial success, that by any definition in the world of Plexus, you would say that's a leader based on results, right? All, your emeralds and above, rubies and above, all these people that you aspire to be a lot like, for sure they have that piece down. Right? And they are good at the process. They know how network marketing works. There's a lot you respect about this kind of leader. Very important. But then there's another type of leader, that what I call the followership-driven leader. Those are some of you in this room that haven't quite reached that level of success in terms of your ability to execute. The financial success isn't quite there yet, or at least at a point that you would feel good about just yet. But that doesn't mean people don't follow you. They respond to you, they like you, they want your success, they're a fan. There's just that little piece missing where there's something you're not quite doing that's got you to that level of results-driven success, even though people are inspired by you and they like you. And all these types of softer things, if you will. So what the high-impact leader, of course, is someone that can do both. Can you drive the level of success and execute and get the results and get the financial success you want, at the same time inspire great fanship and followership around you? Because there's a natural tension. Sometimes as we rise at the level of financial success, occasionally we start to forget the relationships that got us there. It's not that we become a different person in particular, but we get busy. And all of a sudden we aren't focused as much relationally. People are a little intimidated by you. Different things happen in the relationship space where what you're known for is your success, but you're less known now for the relationship piece. And then others of you, again, like I said, you're having this, people really want your success, they believe you have what it takes, but the results aren't there yet. So what the high impact leader is saying is I want to give you some tools today that will help you achieve both. How can I make sure I achieve great results? That's obviously important, but I'm inspiring fanship at all elements. Ultimately, it's going to come down to this concept of can you balance leadership credibility, which is your competence plus your personal character. By character, again, I'm not talking about the broader, obvious character traits such as do you have integrity, right? That's obviously important. I'm talking more about relational credibility, relational character behaviors. So again, a great leader could be very effective. You could say, that person's very good at what he or she does. but I'm not sure I respond as much to them relationally. Do you fundamentally want their success? And that's a different idea between saying, oh, I see you as a leader in terms of the results you drive, but do I want to follow you? Do I follow you because I have to, because you're in my upline? Or do I follow you because I truly want to, because of how you behave relationally? So these relationships have to do with your downline and upline, but they also have to do with every person outside that you're trying to bring in to network marketing. They could look at you and say, oh, impressive, you're telling me a lot about the value of the product, and you seem to be financially very successful, but they still don't want to sign up. Right? Now, there can be problems with individuals as well and other reasons you can't, but a lot of times, I would argue you've got to back it up. We know the products are great. We know you think, but it changes lives. How can you not say yes? How can you not want to be a part of this? How can you not want this financial freedom for yourself? It seems incomprehensible to you who are living it. And a lot of times, it doesn't have to do with your pitch, with the product, with any kind of sale you have. In any realm like that, it backs up into, you're telling me you're competent, you're telling me you're successful, you're telling me the products are great, but I'm not sure you've convinced me relationally that I want to engage in a relationship with you. This doesn't mean you're doing things terribly wrong, by the way. It could just mean you're not doing enough to draw people to you, to make your fan. So that's really, this is the big concept before I delve into the behaviors. You have to recognize your success is fundamentally predicated on other people wanting you to succeed. I'll give you a great story about this. It comes from the world of golf. Tiger Woods, we all know who this golfer is, of course. Notorious golfer for different reasons at different times. But he absolutely was known as the best golfer to ever walk the game and to ever play this game. And when he played, everybody wanted his success. The fans, the sponsors, the media, right? There was nobody that didn't want a piece of Tiger Woods because of his competence, as I referred to, how competence is one piece of it. The reason he got his attention is because he's the best golfer that ever played the game. So he got all that attention going toward him. And it reminds me of a New York Times story that was written once when he played at the 2005 Masters, at the height of his success. He won this Masters. And you could YouTube this shot. It is a 30-foot chip shot on the 16th hole. And he goes to hit it, and it is amazing. Nobody thinks he's gonna make it. It's way too long of a putt. It's a chip shot off the green, onto the green. Anyway, as you sit there and watch this on YouTube, and as the New York Times reporter relates it later, he sits there and the crowd literally starts to go wild as the ball gets closer to the cup. They start stammering, where you could almost hear it. The reporter said when you were there, you could hear the ground and the stammering from the fans that wanted that ball to go in. And it rolls to the hole, and it teeters just on the edge, to the point that Nike got the biggest promotion of its, career in terms of a company. The ball and the Nike swoosh just teetered there, which felt like 10 seconds. It was probably, 1 second, but it felt like a very long time. And it goes in, and the crowd goes insane. I mean, like it was a basketball event, the way that, I think golf is not normally like that. The New York Times reporter, what they said after was, that crowd willed that ball in. They loved that player so much. They willed it in. It went in because it was him. Do you think that ball would have gone in had that been Martha Stewart? And that's what the reporter says. The point being, whatever we think of Martha Stewart or whatnot, it's different. You can see the level of people. She doesn't have fans in the same way that a Tiger Woods would have, and especially at that time. So that time period was not her best moment either back then. So the point is, you often succeed when people around you want you to succeed. So addressing some of those earlier points, when your neighbors want you to succeed, when your communities love that you're one of the most successful people that they know. Right? And this is a hard thing, because there's a lot of jealousies and envies and things like that that can go on. But if you're doing the right stuff relationally, they're your biggest fan too. They want your success. Your downline wants your success. I follow someone that's such a high impact leader. I want that person to be successful. You need people to want your success. If you don't focus on the relationship piece and you only focus on the financial success piece, you might be financially successful. But gosh, what could you do if also a whole team of people around you and in your universe said, I'm your biggest fan. I want that ball to go in for you. So you can't do that just by fooling people, by not being inauthentic. You've got to do the work. But again, to my promise early on, let me give you some behaviors that anybody can do. Now make no mistake, these behaviors I give you, what I love about them, they are not revolutionary concepts. What they are is nobody thinks of them as leadership behaviors. And I would argue they absolutely are. These are behaviors that are what nice people might do, for example. But do you really do this work in terms of yourself as a leader? And what does a leader mean? You must lead here, you must lead in your communities, you must lead in your families. Every behavior I'm going to give you could be applied in any of those contexts, by the way. And you almost have to. Because if you only are a leader here and then you just leave that person there and be someone else later, then you suffer from an authenticity component anyway. The first one, again, not revolutionary idea, but I see this all the time. When we talk about are you credible and do people want to follow you, can you be present in the moment? If you are so distracted by your phones, your emails, your telephone call, every little thing, everything's more important than what's right in front of you, believe me, over time, you're not credible. Because people, they get the message, oh, I'm not that important to you. So this is somebody brand new in your downline who really wants your attention, and you're thinking, that's somebody new, I don't necessarily have to give them my full attention. It's okay if I'm on my phone doing this while I'm answering their questions. No, you do that enough, you send the message, you're not important. Something else is more important than you. Again, let me give you a great example of this. This one's even hard to believe, but I promise you this was the case. Went to my friend's, her baby's baptism. I'm not Catholic, she is. Went to this beautiful event at the Catholic Church, watching the ceremony go on, and something's going on over here with the baby and some other members of the church, and the priest is over up to the other side, waiting for his part to come up. And I'm in the part of the audience where, so if I'm here watching it, and here's the priest over here, and here's the baby over here, I look over at the priest, and he's going like this, on his phone. The priest. I say, excuse me, Father, is God calling? I mean, you know, what could be so important? I get, if God is texting you, I guess we'll give you the break. So going to that point, I mean, talk about loss of instant credibility for me. I didn't say he wasn't smart. I didn't say he wasn't good at his job. I didn't say he's not good enough to be the next pope. Would I follow him? I don't know, because every time I would go back to that church, I'd be wondering, are you on your phone during the parts there on downtime? In confessional, is he sitting there going, yep, he sinned, okay. Right? Anytime that he doesn't think he's on stage, is he not present? I mean, it brings a lot of questions, doesn't it? So that is a classic example of why this is a credibility behavior, and it's relational. When people are talking to you, again, you're on stage all the time. As leaders, I mean, when your neighbors are talking to you, when your kids are talking to you, can you put down that technology and say, you're important to me? It is tough. Believe me, it sounds like an easy thing, but with as much we have coming at us, and we're busy, and we're looking for emails, and there's a lot that happens that makes this tough. But there's a lot of stories, and if you start being present, practice it for a week. Be as present as you can with your spouses, with your kids, with your friends. Be the one in a world in which no one can be present, be the one that stands out. When I start to ask my question, will I follow that person? One of the first things I think about is, do they seem to be able to be present in the moment? Because if not, slowly they're that priest to me. And I think, I don't know if you're ever really paying attention. So that one, again, I don't care your personality, I don't care who you are, you start to think about people that want your success. And notice I'm backing up a lot. I'm going away from the strategies of network marketing to build relationships. And in my breakout session later, I am going to give you some more tactical behaviors around building those relationships. But I'm backing it up to say, not much of it matters if you're not credible first. You can do all the perfect things relationally. You can. And yet at the same time, someone goes, oh, but you do 5 things well, but because you never can look at me when you're talking, I kind of lost some of the other ones for me, right? It's again, an authenticity piece. You must be present. Don't be above anything you ask others to do. Nice concept. We like this concept. Everybody knows this. However, the higher you get in leadership and the more successful you get, often it becomes around telling our downline what they should do to be successful. And it's really easy for them to occasionally say, do you still do that? Or that's what they're thinking, right? You have to find a way. Maybe you don't need to do all those things anymore. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you've got to show you're not above it in some way. Occasionally, you know what? That nitty-gritty work that I tell you to do to get that one more person, I'm going to go get one more person doing that same thing and I'll show you. You've got to find ways to say, I have lots of advice to give, and yet I am not above it. Kids, they have chores, right? You have things you want them to do. Absolutely, you're teaching them responsibility. But do you occasionally say, you know what, I got the trash today, Jimmy. Yes, it's your job, but I'm going to do it. I'm not above the job. I just have assigned you this responsibility. So don't confuse it with rolling up your sleeves and doing all the same things all the time. But do confuse it with the idea that you have to find ways. Another great example, so I told you I work a lot in the financial services industry. Think about how bad this one leader looked when I go through all the security in the World Financial Center. One of the security guards, about a 90-year-old gentleman, jovial, fun New Yorker, really telling jokes to everyone, trying to make the security process a little more fun, kind of equate it to like the TSA, right? How that can be kind of unpleasant, but occasionally there's one that's nice and trying to make it somewhat okay. Well, he was really trying. And I go up to the 32nd floor, I remember, and met the leader, and during the conversation I said, I really got a kick out of that Joe at security. And he said, who? I said, you know, Joe, that he's like 90, he's, you know, really jovial, jokes a lot. He goes, I don't know who that is. He said, you know he's been here 25 years, right? And you've been here 20? And he said, yeah, but I don't think I happen to know those people's names. I said, interesting he knew your name. Right? So again, another example of a way, I mean, this was not an evil human being, but it's a constant level of, well, I'm above having to know certain people's names. You know, I've kind of risen up here. You can see how in our day-to-day life, sometimes you get a little bit with, this is my job up here and this is what I do. And next thing you know, there's a lot of successful people in this room and everybody knows your name, right? And they do. But do you really think, gosh, in all the names that I meet, let me make that a focus for me? Because if I can't remember the people that are just starting and remembering their names, and new people that are fearful to come into this industry or hoping they're letting go of their other career, that this will be okay, are you finding lots of ways to say, you know, I'm not above it? And that's just another example with names, with behaviors, lots of little things. Your neighbors, right? You might ask favors of them. They might ask favors of you. Are you making sure that you know, these are people I need in my network over time? And am I behaving in a way that I'm clearly showing them? Anything I ask of you, I'm certainly not above doing myself. You'll find ways in your own life to act this, but remember the same concept. It's going back. I believe leadership is about, are you creating fans? If every one of you in this industry just went out and said, that's how I behave every day, I'm going to think less about the transaction of what I'm trying to sell and get people on board and help people even, and just say, my job really is to create fans every day. Eventually, your brand is so strong, people want your success so much, when you do go to ask and say, you know, I've been doing this Plexus for 6 months. It will be so much easier of a sell for you because they already are inspired by somebody who's present in the moment, who's never above doing what they've asked of them. These types of behaviors draw people to you. I mentioned this one briefly, but do make sure your on-stage presence is equal to your off-stage presence. So some people have a persona, and they're a certain way in front of certain people. The most common thing we see in sort of the industries I work in, and I would guess even in this one, very easy for us to behave perfectly upward, right? When we're in front of people we want to impress, we behave a certain way. But then again, when we think the people that don't matter as much, meaning they don't control our access to rewards and status and favor, then we're more apt to sort of be less of our best versions of ourselves, perhaps. So you have to be thinking about, are you always looking at, am I basically the same person? When I worry about people the most is when they say something like, yeah, I've been at work all day and I'm just excited to go home where I can finally be the real me, that type of feeling. Or they say, oh, my spouse would say I'm like this, but at work they say I'm like that. And then I think a little like, well, where is the authenticity problem coming in? Why are you having trouble being the same person in both domains? People get wind of this. It's not authentic if they feel you're acting there, that's the real you. I've seen you behave this way there, but that way there. They really wonder if that's somebody they're going to follow. So this inherently could be a little bit of the problem with this industry, right? So skeptics are often a little bit, they say things like, oh, you know, those network marketing types, right? Now, I don't know exactly what that means, right? And you know more what that means, but I would guess a big piece of it, they can't argue with your success. They can't argue with the great products, at least in Plexus's case, right, if they really knew. But what it is they're not sure it's authentic yet, right? They're seeing you kind of in your mode. They're seeing you go into a sales mode. And so again, it's how do you weave in those points about the product and how do you really talk about what it's done for you in a way that isn't just around a pitch, which is sort of like that's your off-stage presence, or your on-stage presence. You're going into a mode to talk about why Plexus. as opposed to working it in on more of a daily basis, little bits and pieces, that it just becomes who you are and part of what you talk about. A lot of you, when I was in the parking lot even, I see so many symbols around on the cars and all these kinds of things. This is you living that brand on a regular basis. But how can you make it less of a, ready, I'm now here to talk about Plexus and why you should be on board, and more of an integrative, this is just kind of who I am, just like I talk about my kids, I talk about Plexus, I talk about, you want this, you want to try this drink, but you can never kind of be ready, it is prime time to sell. Again, it's got to back up. People have to really feel like that is just part of who you are. And everybody would say that you're the same no matter what. You always talk about the product. You didn't just go into mode with me. This is actually my favorite behavior. This is the behavior I use the absolute most from a purely sales standpoint. I would use this behavior all the time. So what I mean by this is, too often we make a lot of small promises and we don't keep them. Call it small promises, call it small commitments, but I really do mean small. You will meet people at this event. I guarantee most of you have already made some of these. You know what, when I get back, I'll send you that. You know what, we should get together and talk about that. We should strategize together. You know, I'm happy to help you, just give me a call. All these are read like small little commitments. And then what happens is you get back to your life and you kind of forget you made some of those and someone doesn't follow up and you don't think that much of it. But by and large, if you become known as a person that makes a lot of small promises and doesn't keep them, then people start to wonder, if you can't even call me after the convention like you said you would, why would I believe it when you promise me something big? And it's every time I listen to people make a lot of empty promises, and frankly it happens partly because in our society, we're a little uncomfortable saying goodbye to people. So you think about you're out for dinner, you go have some drinks with people at convention, and you're ready to go up to your room, or you're ready to just see them tomorrow. A lot of times when we leave an event, it's a little uncomfortable to be like, this has been great, bye. Right? So we wind up saying like, oh, I love that recommendation on that restaurant. Could you follow up with me? Or you know what, and you know what I'll send you? Or you know what I'll do tonight before I'll shoot an email to, somehow to say goodbye. We kind of feel like to finish it, we have to make these little bit of promises. But make no mistake, after a while, people think, next time you say, I'll send you that, they're thinking, no, she'll never do that. She never does it. Right? And now you have that attribution that you never do what you say you're going to do. And that isn't true maybe on the big things, but people don't distinguish. The little things matter. So by and large, first of all, think about it. Think about, don't say things that are empty if you don't fully intend to keep them. But more importantly, I would absolutely use this as a strategy. I can't say 100%, but I would say 90% of the time, I will not leave a conversation with people without trying to make a promise, just so I can keep it. So when you talk about building your credibility with people, that's how you start. You go around to everybody in your network, everybody you can think of that you go in and you're trying to build a relationship with, and you find promises to make them. I don't care how small. Oh, I'll tell you about that resort I went to. I'll tell you about that restaurant. Oh, you're headed here. It can be outside of the world of Plexus. But you want to build a relationship, start making tiny promises to everybody you know, just so you can show them how credible you are. If I said I'll do it, I'll do it. Now think about the leap 6 months down the line when you say, you will be happy you tried this product. They're going to believe you, as opposed to, why would I believe you? So far you told me you do this, you do that this is great, you never kept any of that, so why would I believe now this matters so much, that this is really your one key promise you're going to keep me, that this is going to be a great solution for my life? Why would I buy it? So absolutely, think about every conversation you have with people, when you can help it, find a way to say, I'd love to give you more information on that, right? I'd love to, and it does have to be, it can't always be, I'd love to give you information on the product, let me send you the product. Again, it's got to go outside the transaction or you get that on-stage, off-stage issue. Now they're not sure, now you're going into sales mode with me. It's more about, let me back up, and again, in the breakout session, I'm going to give you a sheet of how we track relationships. How you take relationships and you say, how many touch points have I had with this person? What media am I using to touch that person? How am I interacting with them? Because it might be a 6-month process. It could be a 2-year process. Those of you that are wanting to go out to other network marketers and draw them into the world of Plexus, this could be a long cycle for you. But if you just say, they just don't seem on board, forget it, let me go somewhere else. Instead say, you're right, they might never be on board. but that's a relationship that it's worth me making promises, finding a way to keep them, being so credible that if there's ever a point of weakness where they're thinking of leaving that other company, they remember me. I'm always someone who kept that promise to them. Why wouldn't they trust me now? You'll be the one they choose. It's a great behavior, great strategy for how you start in your downline. You make promises to people, keep them every time. Make them be your biggest fan. Strive for frequent contact with people. So what this equation is meant to say is I would much rather have you have 3 10-minute conversations with somebody than 2 15-minute conversations than 1 30-minute conversation. The time's the same, but you build relationships with frequency of contact. You don't actually build relationships with people. Again, this list that I've been referring to, all the people you want in your network, the people you're trying to get on board, the people in your downline that you're trying to nurture. If you're only talking to them once every 2 weeks, once every month, once a week even, it might not be enough to truly build that relationship you want. And it comes from something like this. You know, all of us have people that live in different cities, states, maybe countries, that are friends of ours, family, and you don't talk to them maybe as often, some of them. And, you know, your lives go on, you have different lives, you're living in different places. So when they call, and you see it on the caller ID, you're more apt to go, gosh, that's gonna be a long conversation. We have a lot to catch up on. I'm just gonna have to let that go to voicemail, right? Like, I just can't do that. And now you delay it another couple of weeks and months. And by the time you catch up, it is like an hour conversation for sure. And unfortunately, even that hour conversation isn't that fulfilling because you spend the first 48 minutes catching up on their life. And so now you're finally to the day-to-day talking about something that's really current, and now you've got to go because you have a meeting, right? And so then you wait and so the relationship really never grows. I mean, you might have a past with these people, but it's never really getting invested in the day and the here and now because too much time has passed. Think about the people in your life you talk to frequently, right? They could call it a break here and you'd pick up the phone and say, oh, hey, yeah, no, what is it? Okay, sounds good, right? Very easy because you don't have to say, okay, so you got married, wow, okay, go, when was this, right? You don't have to go into the past. You're already there and you're current. So translate this how you will, but I would rather see you speak. If there's people in your downline you're trying to motivate, speak to them every day for 5 minutes. Now, it's a slightly different leadership concept, how you make sure it really is only 5 minutes, because I know, believe me, if you give people time, they will take it. Every 5 minutes will become 30. But find a way, and I can address that in the breakout session as well, but this idea of how you make sure that it is I'm gonna have a 5-minute conversation with as many people as I can on a daily basis, as opposed to waiting for, I should probably check in there. And some of you might not be checking in enough. Or even those of you need to check in with your upline. Frequency. Realize I'm not asking for more time, I'm really asking for the same amount of time, but in a different way. Frequency builds relationships, not big, long conversations. And again, I know that there's certain, say, ambassadors that talk to the leadership at certain times, and they don't speak with them for long periods of time, but they check in pretty regularly. It's a quick touch point that builds a relationship in the long haul. You must choose your media wisely. My guess is too many of you are using those check-ins, and it could be that you're doing too much email. Email is a phenomenal tool. It is great. I'm not advancing that you not use it and that you get rid of it. But what I am saying is the media and the message must match. So some messages are too rich for email. That most of the time, if I were going to give a quick and dirty rule here, I would say all of you should reduce email usage by 20%. If you simply did that, you would see a change in how relationships build. Same thing, you're trying to reach out to new people, potentially new level ones, people you're wanting to recruit. You send little check-in emails, say hi, you think you're building the relationship. An email's okay occasionally, but if all you've done is email that person over the last 6 months to check in and you're getting no advancement there, try a different medium. Try and get them face-to-face. Try and at least get them on the phone. Try and change the conversation. 3 general rules about where you never use email if you can help it. 1 is if it could be interpersonally sensitive. We know this one, but we still mess it up. I don't know, we seem to universally, the reason we still mess this up occasionally is if you are feeling in any way a sense of conflict. So emotionally in your stomach, in the pit of your stomach, you're feeling a little bit of an emotionality around a situation, don't trust yourself to send an email. you'll sit there and you'll draft it, you'll try and make it sound perfect, and you'll try and take the emotion out of it, but you'll find your way to get just this little dig in there, but oh no, it wasn't that bad. Oh, it was that bad. They know.